Ladies and gentlemen, what is it that makes something rare? Is it the sparkle of a diamond, the untouched beauty of a distant star, or the silence of an ancient forest untouched by human hands? We are taught to value what is rare because it is different, because it is unique. And yet in this search for rarity we often overlook the most remarkable thing. The very quality that makes something rare is often not what we think it is. What is rarity really? We often speak of rarity as if it's something tangible, something we can possess or treasure. We use it as a measure to place value upon something, an object, a person, a moment. Rare things are valuable things, we think. A rare jewel, a rare bird, a rare person. We're trained from childhood to seek out that which is unique, exceptional, and different from the ordinary, and to elevate it. But here's the question: is rarity truly a quality inherent in the thing itself, or is it simply a projection of our own desires and expectations? To call something rare is, in a sense, to say it stands apart from the rest of the world, as if it exists in some special category of existence that others do not. But this rarity often arises from our perception, from the lens we choose to look through. To take, for instance, a rare flower. Perhaps it grows in a remote part of the world, its beauty untouched by human hands. We see it as rare, not because of something intrinsic to its petals or its scent, but because we are limited by our own experiences. We value it because it exists outside our reach, beyond the horizon of the familiar. And yet that flower, growing in its small patch of earth, might be as commonplace to the creatures who live in its world as a blade of grass is to us. The same can be said about people. We often look at someone and label them as rare because they possess qualities we admire or desire. A woman who defies social conventions, a person who rises above mediocrity, a figure who excels where others struggle, these are the people we call rare. But what if their rarity is simply a reflection of the cultural norms they break, rather than an inherent quality in themselves? What if their rarity is not in who they are, but in what we expect them to be? In truth, there is nothing inherently rare about any of us. We all exist in the same world, interconnected, interdependent. We are all born from the same cosmic forces, and we all return to the same dust, the same soil. What we call rarity is often merely a snapshot of a moment in time when we choose to place attention upon something, to focus on it in a way that makes it appear exceptional. We take something that is part of the whole, and by lifting it up, isolating it, and defining it as rare, we create a distinction that was never truly there. This is where the illusion lies, in the act of dividing the world into what is common. And what is rare, we create an artificial hierarchy. We cut the world into fragments, believing that some things are more valuable, more special than others. But the truth is that rarity is a construct, a social invention, a product of our own selective perception. To see something as rare is not to understand it in its wholeness, but to ignore its intrinsic place in the great web of existence. The paradox of rarity, then, is that by elevating something as rare, we distance ourselves from it. We make it other. We make it separate. But in reality, nothing is separate. What we perceive as rare is simply the product of our own need to see difference, to feel special, to find meaning in the uniqueness of the world. And this is the great irony: when we make something rare, we are, in a way, denying its essential unity with everything else. We see it as different, as removed from the ordinary, but in doing so we lose sight of its profound connection to all that is common. The rarest of things, then, may not be that which stands apart, but that which is so profoundly integrated with everything else that it cannot be separated. The rarest of things may be that which is so ordinary, so present, that we do not even recognize it. It is the moment you are fully present with your own breath, the experience of feeling the earth beneath your feet without needing to label it as earth, the profound recognition that you are, in fact, no different from any other being in the universe. The illusion of rarity is the illusion of separation. And when we transcend this illusion, we come to understand that everything is rare, and therefore nothing is rare at all. Every person who walks upon this earth carries within them a singular constellation of experiences, thoughts, emotions, and potentialities. Each one of us is, in essence, a unique combination of innumerable factors: genetic inheritance, personal history, cultural influences, choices made, and the infinite, unpredictable twists of life that shape us. The uniqueness of every human being is not simply a matter of surface traits or external accomplishments. It is woven into the very fabric of our being. It resides in the complexity of our minds, the depths of our hearts, and the way we interact with the world. It is easy to overlook the incredible uniqueness of others when we are constantly comparing, categorizing, and labeling. We often reduce people to roles, types, or labels based on their outward appearance, their social status, or the way they present themselves. We may see someone as a mother, a teacher, a leader, or a poet, and in doing so we miss the vastness that lies within them. Each of these roles, while important, is only a small fragment of the whole of that person. Beneath the surface, behind the titles, is a person who is shaped by every moment they've ever lived, by every relationship they've ever had, by every thought they've ever had. The uniqueness of a person is not just in their achievements or their external persona, but in the way they experience the world in their own distinct manner. Imagine the mind of a single individual, how it is shaped by everything they have seen, heard, or felt. Every thought, every emotion, every perception is colored by the particular lens of their experiences. Two people can look at the same tree, but one may see it as a symbol of life and growth, while another might experience it as a reminder of their childhood or as a moment of stillness in the midst of chaos. The diversity of human experience ensures that each mind is an entirely unique universe, shaped not only by the events of life, but also by the way it filters and processes those events. This inner world, the thoughts, the struggles, the moments of clarity, is where true uniqueness resides. Even when we try to define people by some external measure, we fail to capture the full depth of their individuality. We might point to someone's intelligence, their creativity, their kindness, or their outward beauty and say, this is what makes them unique. But in truth, these qualities are only expressions of deeper, invisible currents of history, culture, genetics, and experiences unfolding in each moment. Two people may exhibit the same intelligence or creative capacity, but the way these qualities manifest in them, the flavor they take on, the way they impact others, will always be different. The uniqueness of each human being is not just in what they do, but in how they do it, in the subtle and ever-changing dance between their inner nature and the world around them. Furthermore, the uniqueness of every human being extends far beyond what we can even begin to understand. As much as we might try to analyze or categorize a person, the totality of who they are will always elude us. We are all much more than the sum of our parts. There is an infinite depth to each person that no one can fully capture. The quietest moment in one's life, the most fleeting thought, the most invisible act of kindness, these are the subtle expressions of that person's unique essence. It is in the spaces between words, in the pauses and silences, that the truest uniqueness resides. We cannot measure or quantify the heart of another. We can only experience it in the brief, intimate glimpses that pass between us. And this uniqueness is not just an individual phenomenon. It is also a reflection of the interconnection of all things. Each person in their complexity and singularity is part of the greater whole, a thread in the vast web of life. The uniqueness of one person cannot be separated from the uniqueness of others, for it is through our relationships, our encounters, and our shared experiences that the fullness of our individuality comes to life. What makes us truly unique is not our separation, but our interconnectedness. We are each a distinctive expression of life itself, and yet we are never truly apart from the whole. The beauty of our uniqueness is that it is inseparable from the fabric of all being, interwoven in such a way that we cannot be understood apart from the vastness that surrounds us. To recognize the uniqueness of every human being is to see beyond the surface, to look deeper than the outward expressions of personality or appearance. It is to acknowledge that the essence of each person is infinitely complex and unknowable, a mystery that we can only approach with reverence and awe. We are all, each in our own way, irreplaceable, and in this irreplaceability lies the profound beauty of human existence. The concept of self and identity is one of the most profound and enigmatic aspects of the human experience. We often speak of the self as though it is something fixed and certain something we can point to, something that belongs to us. But in truth, the self is not a static entity, it is a fluid, dynamic process. It is not something we possess, but something we become. We are constantly shifting, evolving, and responding to the world around us. And in this ongoing transformation, the idea of a singular, unchanging self begins to break down. In many ways, our understanding of who we are is shaped by the stories we tell ourselves. From the moment we are born, we begin to weave a narrative about our lives, who we are, where we come from, what our purpose is. This narrative is influenced by our families, our societies, and the larger culture in which we live. These stories create a sense of continuity, a sense of coherence, and they give us a sense of identity, a self that we believe we can recognize and understand. But this sense of self is built on layers of beliefs, memories, and ideas that are often far removed from the deeper truth of our being. The concept of identity then becomes a delicate construction. It is not something inherent or fixed, but something we construct moment by moment. We identify with our roles, whether as a mother, a teacher, a friend, or a citizen, and we use these roles to define ourselves. We say, I am this or I am that, and in doing so we create a boundary around who we believe ourselves to be. Yet these identities are often superficial, shaped by external expectations and influenced by the judgments of others. The world tells us who we should be, and we adapt, accepting these external labels as truth. But at a deeper level, these roles do not truly define us. They are only a fraction of who we are, a temporary manifestation of something much larger, more fluid, and more mysterious. Our attachment to identity can create a sense of separation from others and from the world. We begin to see ourselves as distinct, as individuals with a separate essence. We cling to our roles, our possessions, and our ideas of who we are, and in doing so we reinforce the illusion of separateness. But the truth is that the concept of a fixed self is, in itself, an illusion. The self is not a static object, but a process, a continuous unfolding of experience, thought, and emotion. It is not something that exists in isolation, but rather something that emerges through our relationships, our interactions, and our participation in the flow of life. The more we try to define the self, the more we realize how slippery it is. What we think of as I is not a singular, unchanging entity, but a constellation of ever-shifting experiences, memories, and desires. At one moment we may feel strong and confident, in the next vulnerable and uncertain. Our mood changes, our thoughts change, our circumstances change. And yet we continue to hold on to the idea of a constant self, as if it was something that could be grasped and understood. But in reality, the self is like a river, constantly flowing, never the same from one moment to the next. This realization that the self is not a fixed identity, but a fluid, ever-changing process can be both liberating and unsettling. On the one hand, it frees us from the rigid expectations we place upon ourselves. If we are not defined by a single, permanent identity, then we are free to become, to evolve, and to experience life without the burden of maintaining a specific image of who we should be. We can embrace the full range of human experience, joy, sorrow, success, failure, without fear of losing our identity, because we understand that we are not tied to any one state or role. On the other hand, this realization can be unsettling because it challenges our deeply ingrained need for certainty. We like to think of ourselves as stable, consistent beings, and the idea that our self is fluid and ever-changing can create a sense of insecurity. Who are we if we are not what we think we are? What remains when we strip away the labels, the roles, and the stories? This question takes us into deeper waters, where the very notion of the self begins to dissolve, revealing a vast, open space of possibility, a space in which the boundaries of the individual are no longer so clearly defined. When we let go of the need to define ourselves by fixed identities, we open ourselves to a more profound experience of being. In this openness, we begin to see that we are not separate from the world around us. We are inextricably linked to the vast, interconnected web of life. Our sense of self is not isolated from others, but part of a greater whole, an ongoing process of becoming. The I is not a solid entity, but a transient moment in the endless flow of existence. In this realization, we are freed from the limitations of self-imposed definitions and are able to experience life with greater freedom and depth. The idea of identity is ultimately a reflection of the mind's attempt to make sense of the world and to find meaning in the chaos of existence. But the truth is that the self cannot be fully understood through concepts or labels. It is something that must be experienced, not intellectually grasped. When we move beyond the confines of our constructed identities, we begin to touch the vastness of our true nature, a nature that is not defined by the roles we play or the labels we wear, but by our participation in the unfolding of life itself. There is a profound beauty in the unseen, in that which is not immediately visible, that which escapes our conscious grasp. We live in a world that constantly seeks to categorize, define, and make everything accessible to the eye, the mind, and the intellect. We prize what is visible, what can be touched, quantified, and understood. We chase after things that we can name and possess, things that can be illuminated by the bright light of attention. And yet much of life's deepest truths remain hidden in the shadows, beyond the reach of ordinary perception. The unseen, the hidden realms of experience, the quiet mysteries that lie beneath the surface is as essential to our lives as the things we see with our eyes. To embrace the unseen is to step into a space of humility, of recognition that there is much more to life than what we can immediately grasp or control. The unseen is the subtle presence that we often overlook in our busy, distracted lives. It is the silence between words, the space between moments, the breath between thoughts. It is the invisible thread that connects all things, the unspoken understanding that flows through relationships, the quiet forces that shape the world around us in ways we cannot always measure. But we are taught to value the visible, to pay attention to what we can touch, what we can prove, what we can observe with our senses. The seen world is one of concrete facts where everything can be put into boxes, labeled and easily understood. Yet in doing so we ignore the depth of experience that lies beyond the reach of our senses, the inner world of feeling, intuition, and spiritual insight that cannot be easily articulated or observed. The unseen is not something we can grasp with the intellect. It is something that must be felt with the heart, experienced with the whole being. This unseen world is often dismissed as less real, less important, or even irrelevant. We are conditioned to believe that the things we cannot see are mere abstractions, or worse, figments of the imagination. But the unseen is not less real. It is just as vital, if not more so, than the tangible world we encounter each day. It is the root of our thoughts, the foundation of our emotions, and the source of our deepest knowing. It is in the unseen that we find meaning and connection. It is in the unseen that we touch the essence of who we are and what we are here for. Consider the vastness of the universe, the galaxies, the stars, the planets that stretch out into the infinite. Much of this cosmic expanse is invisible to the naked eye. We only see a small fraction of what exists, yet we understand that the universe is far greater than what is visible. The unseen forces of gravity, time, and dark matter shape the very fabric of reality, yet we rarely think about them, for they are beyond our immediate perception. And yet, without these unseen forces, nothing would exist as we know it. This is a reminder that the invisible is often just as essential as the visible, if not more so. The same is true in our personal lives. We often focus on external achievements, accolades, and the outward expressions of success, what can be seen and recognized by others. But what of the unseen forces within us, the quiet currents of thought, the deep stirrings of the heart, the subtle shifts in consciousness that guide our decisions and shape our lives? These are the forces that often go unnoticed, but they are the true architects of our experience. The choices we make, the relationships we build, the way we navigate the world are all shaped by the unseen currents of our inner life. It is easy to dismiss these things as unimportant because they are not immediately visible. But they are the very foundation of who we are. In our relationships with others, the unseen plays an equally critical role. We often place value on what can be seen, the words spoken, the actions taken, the external expressions of affection. Yet much of what makes a relationship deep and meaningful exists in the unseen. It is in the unspoken understanding, the gestures that do not need to be explained, the moments of silence that communicate more than words ever could. It is in the presence we offer one another, the subtle energy that flows between two people who are truly attuned to each other, that the deepest connections are formed. The unseen is what creates the bond that words cannot express. It is the space of vulnerability, of trust, of quiet acknowledgement that exists beneath the surface. To embrace the unseen is to cultivate awareness of the spaces between things, the pauses that separate one moment from the next, the invisible threads that connect all of life. It is to learn to listen not just with the ears, but with the whole body, with the heart, with the soul. It is to understand that the most profound truths of existence often cannot be expressed or contained by language. They are felt in the silence, in the stillness, in the spaces between thoughts. This is not to say that we should disregard the seen world, or that the visible should be ignored. The visible is where we live, where we act, where we engage with others. But it is to recognize that the visible world is only one layer of reality. The unseen world is where the heart resides, where the soul finds its meaning, and where the deepest parts of ourselves are formed. It is in the unseen that we connect with the eternal, the unchanging, the vast mystery of existence itself. And it is in embracing the unseen that we find a deeper peace, a greater understanding, and a truer sense of who we are. In recognizing the rarest qualities of human beings, whether in the unseen, the unique, or the fluid nature of identity, we come to understand that what we often seek outside ourselves is already present within. The illusion of rarity, the constructed nature of identity, and the hidden depths of experience all invite us to embrace life as it is vast, interconnected, and ever-changing. True rarity is not in separation or exceptionalism, but in our ability to live authentically, to see beyond surface appearances, and to embrace the profound mystery of existence with openness and reverence for the unseen within and around us.